Charlie. Push. Halt. Right. Peace. Ready.
Good morning. Welcome to the City of Lebanon Veterans Day ceremonies. I'd like to begin our ceremonies with an opening prayer for Post 22 Chaplain Robert Pushy.
Thank you. Uncover a Veterans Day prayer. You gave for peace with courage, that families may be free, so children could grow strong and safe they'll ever be. In giving for the sake of peace, you may have suffered loss, your body still shows its wounds for taking up the cause. May remembrance of your time away, your sacrifice for peace, spur us on to strive more strongly for freedom, that there'll be release. From causes that sent some away, to fight that we may freely live, with gratefulness we thank you, veterans, for all you gave and give. Amen. Cover.
Now I'd ask that everybody join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, led by our Unit 22 Junior Auxiliary Member, Hannah Griswold.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I'd like to introduce to you the choral club from Lebanon High School, the Superlatives, who will sing our national anthem. At this time, I'd like to introduce some of our distinguished guests we have with us today. Senator David Pierce, Councilwoman Karen Lee O'Hill, Councilman Early Heistat, Councilwoman Nicole Corman, Mayor Georgia Tuttle, MD, City Manager Greg Lewis, our sidekick Nolan, marching with him, Representative Andy White, Representative Susan Almy, County Commissioner Mike Cryans, at this time, I would like to introduce to you the Commander of American Legion Post 2, Lenny McMinn.
On behalf of Post 22, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out today to help us celebrate Veterans Day. All the veterans that made it out, all the little kids out here. It's great to see everyone. That's it for me. Thank you for coming out.
At this time, I'd like to introduce our distinguished Mayor, Georgia Tuttle, for welcome from the City of Lebanon.
Well, thank you. On behalf of the City of Lebanon, our City Council, our City Manager, and all of our employees, I'd like to thank you for coming out today. We are nearly at the exact date of Armistice, the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th year in 1918. So for those of you who call this Veterans Day, it used to be Armistice Day, and in honor of that, I'm carrying with me a World War I medal from the Rainbow Division. That division was gassed in the trenches of France. My grandfather served there and survived, and brought back with him the belt from a German soldier that he killed, to remember that war is not, to try to remember and to teach his sons that we need to stop war because there are losses on both sides. So I hope we will remember every veteran who served, and we will pray for peace. Thank you.
At this time, the Lebanon High School Band will play two renditions, the first being America the Beautiful, followed by America. And now I'd like to introduce our city manager and Vietnam veteran, Mr. Greg Lewis.
Good morning. I appreciate the honor of speaking today in service and support of veterans and their families. The journey in service and support of veterans and their families commenced for me and my wife, who has joined me today. She's taking care of the bulldog and moving this direction. She joins me today, and our journey began because of her upbringing in an extended World War II veteran families. Ruth grew up in the sand hills of western Nebraska on an irrigation farm outside of Alliance, Nebraska, with her Uncle Lloyd, U.S. Army veteran, Western Front European Theater of Operation under the command of my fellow Kansan and the 34th President of the United States, Dwight David Eisenhower. And along with Uncle Lloyd, there was Uncle Jay, who was the U.S. Army veteran, Papua New Guinea Campaign Pacific Theater of Operations under the command of the iconic Supreme Allied Commander for the Southwest Pacific Area, General Douglas MacArthur. I grew up, while she was in Nebraska, I grew up in the wheat fields of central Kansas on a piece of acreage outside of Hutchinson, Kansas, with my father, Dean, U.S. Navy veteran, Pacific Ocean Campaign under the command of the United States last surviving Fleet Admiral, Admiral Chester Nimitz, Commander-in-Chief, Pacific Ocean Areas. That's where we started. That's where many of you started. And now let's flash forward. Now join me in flashing forward to the Vietnam War era, the tumultuous end of the 60s and the beginning of the 70s. Nursing graduate, my wife Ruth, was marching off to enlist to be a U.S. Army nurse when she was stopped in her tracks by her war-fearful, overwrought farm wife and mother, Cora. And believe me, as Cora's son-in-law, she was quite a person. So she stood at the doorway of the farm and kept her out of the Army Nurse Corps. However, my wife eventually asserted herself, and she left her sandhill irrigation farmland to become a U.S. Veterans Medical Center ICU nurse in Omaha, Denver, Fargo, and Minneapolis, leading us to have our Lewis family children spend many a holiday bringing goodies to VA intensive care units to those serving and supporting the vets and their families there. While she was off on that trek, helping in the VA, I was being inducted into the U.S. Army, trained to be 11 Bravo combat infantryman and dropped by a Huey combat assault helicopter in the jungles of Vietnam and Cambodia. As first a machine gun team member and then a squad leader in the 1st Air Cavalry in Southeast Asia. Now, we've learned a lesson, which I think everyone that's been a veteran learns, and that is what we have learned from this life journey about being in military service, being a veteran, and being a veteran's family member is that you pull together and not apart. The cohesion necessary to meet the difficult challenges requires that you support the one ahead of you. You have to support the one aside to your left and to your right, and the one behind you. And they must support you and each other. That is unit cohesion. Each year on Veterans Day, I honor and celebrate my personal fallen heroes, my 4 fellow 4th Platoon members of Delta Company, 1st to the 7th Cavalry, who are now on the wall of the National Vietnam Veterans Memorials. Staff Sergeant Gary Johnson, Specialist 4, Mike Dawson, Specialist 4, Jim Cummings, and Sergeant Tom Poole. And there they are. We were here last year with them, but I'm not going to go back. I talked last year. I think of them all morning and have been thinking of them all morning, but I'm going to talk about some other 3 heroes, one of whom is one of them. Now, I looked at this in terms of today, and I think that when I speak of 3 fallen heroes, there's a duality present when I speak about such individuals. I wish to honor and celebrate them and their families personally, but I also wish to inspire you who are present And you who are listening you are listening because we have CATV covering this today. You who are listening as well to reflect on and celebrate your own remembered fallen or heroes and wounded warriors and their families. So with that in mind, I'm going to begin by first someone that's already been on the wall. But I bring him back to you in larger in life. It's Staff Sergeant Gary Johnson. Gary was larger than life. He was a blonde, handsome Texan with a great smile and a great laugh, who loved to sing Bob Wills and the Texas Playboy songs. Wills and his band in their heyday, they were the kings of Western swing. Gary's favorite Texas Playboy song was Big Balls and Cowtown. That's a little too risque for me at the time as a young staid Kansas Puritan named Lewis. I'm still too staid for that song, but he would sing it. And he would sing it, put on your new shoes, put on your gowns, shake off those sad blues, the big balls in town. Big balls in Cowtown will all go down. Big balls in Cowtown will all dance around. And when I see that song, I hear him singing now. Well, Gary was inducted in the U.S. Army just like I was. But he was so strong that he trained to be 11 Bravo Combat Infantry NCO, non-commissioned officer. And he too was dropped by Huey helicopters into the jungles of Vietnam, the 1st Air Cavalry. He was a much respected leader on our 4th Platoon. He began to be a short timer. He was getting close to returning to the world of the stateside U.S. And he was going back to Texas. He told his platoon lieutenant that he had a premonition he would not make it back from a certain morning patrol. A new sergeant had just come into the 4th Platoon and to take his place and replace him. However, Gary nevertheless walked point down the jungle trail that morning in question. He took an MVA 51 caliber round to his chest. I helped carry him and place him on the medevac helicopter. Gary is buried in Archer City Cemetery in the city and county of Archer, Texas. My next hero is my buddy, my pal. He's Specialist 4, Andy Grimes. Andy was a tall, handsomely rugged Tennessee farmer, inducted in the U.S. Army, trained to be 11 Bravo Combat Infantry, and again dropped by Huey assault helicopters into the jungles of Vietnam and Cambodia as a machine gun team member in the 1st Air Cavalry in Southeast Asia. He was adept at good humor. He was skilled at fixing up this great cream sugar coffee, whipped peanut butter jelly on sea ration crackers, and a red-hot sauce-peppered LRP meal. Now, LRPs, for those who don't know it, was long-range patrol or LRP rations. They were freeze-dried, hydrated field rations, and they taste like crap. And he put that up so hot you couldn't taste it. You just taste your tongue and the pepper on your tongue. But it kept you alive. Andy was extremely strong. He always carried more belts of M60 machine gun rounds than others, more than twice what other squad members carried. He was a courageous machine gun team member who rushed to the aid of wounded platoon members, positioning gun team ahead of the wounded and giving cover fire to allow their evacuation to safety while Gary stood his ground. Andy stood his ground. Andy felt he was lucky. He was happy. His combat tour ended, and he was returning to Tennessee. But after returning, he began experiencing declining health and PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, which he believed were results of his exposure to the chemical defoliant Agent Orange during combat in the jungles of Cambodia in 1970. He began filing paperwork with the Veterans Administration in 1987 to get the benefits after he became ill. However, he died on December 5th, 1988, at the age of 40, as a result of PTSD. After 20 years after his death, the Department of Veteran Affairs recognized Andy's claim to his service-related disability benefits. His wonderful wife and widow, Virginia, reacted that I wish he could have been alive to have it, that is, the benefits that he thought he was entitled to. She now receives service-connected death benefit compensation as a result. She stated, I feel more at rest now. Andy is buried in the city of Trenton in Gibson County, Tennessee. My last but not least fallen hero is Captain Jennifer Marino. Jennifer was born June 25th, 1988 in San Diego, California. She passionately wanted to be both a nurse and a soldier in order to serve and support her personal mission to help others. After graduating from San Diego High School, she was commissioned to the U.S. Army as a Nurse Corps officer. After graduating from the University of San Francisco with a Bachelor of Science degree in nursing. Jennifer completed the Army Airborne Course 2009 at Fort Benning, Georgia, and the Army Medical Department Officer Basic Course 2010 at Fort Sam Houston, Texas. Jennifer was then assigned to Madigan Army Medical Center, Joint Base Lewis McChord, Washington, where she began her work for the Army as a clinical staff nurse on a medical surgical unit. She volunteered and was successfully assessed and selected into the U.S. Army Special Operations Command Cultural Support Team program and deployed in this year in June 2013 to Afghanistan. This is a nurse that could be on a wing of a floor of a medical center. Instead, she volunteered on this tour, her first tour, for a Special Operations Cultural Team whose mission was to engage Afghan women. Her job was to search females for explosives or hidden weapons, interact with women and children encountered in special operations missions to make sure they were taken care of after they were segregated from other individuals. She was working with the Rangers. Jennifer, along with 3 other soldiers with the 75th Ranger Regiment based at Fort Benning, Georgia, were killed by an IED, an explosive on patrol with regards to a fortified compound Sunday, October 6th, about a month ago, after a suicide bomber emerged from a compound wearing and detonating an explosive suicide vest during a night raid to capture a high-valued Taliban target. Jennifer's unit commanders described Jennifer. She was making a difference in Afghanistan, and that legacy will live on. Our unit mourns the loss of First Lieutenant Jennifer Marino. She was a talented member of our team who lost her life while serving her country in one of the most dangerous environments in the world. Her bravery and self-sacrifice were keeping with the highest traditions of the 75th Ranger Regiment. She was making a difference in Afghanistan, and that legacy will live on. The Marino family is in our prayers. Now, legally, $100,000 should have been paid to Jennifer's family within 3 days of her death for funeral and burial expenses. But at the time that Jennifer fell, due to the partial federal government shutdown, no authority existed to pay the money. Jennifer's body was to be flown to Dover, Delaware, where her flag-draped coffin would come in on a C-130 from Afghanistan. Her family was to be there to meet her, so they could see her taken off of the plane. Jennifer and her family were not served and supported by her country in this, their greatest time of need. The Fisher House Foundation of Bethesda, Maryland, stepped up to pull together with Jennifer's family to cover the costs so Jennifer could be met by her family at Dover. Subsequently, remedial federal administrative action was taken, the federal government shutdown was ended, and the expenditure for Jennifer and her family was reimbursed or paid. Jennifer's mother, 2 sisters, and a brother in the United States Army survives her. Jennifer posthumously received the Combat Action Badge, Bronze Star, Meritorious Service Medal, Purple Heart, Afghan Campaign Medal, NATO Medal, and she previously held the Parachutist Badge. Jennifer was posthumously promoted from lieutenant to captain. Jennifer is buried in the city and county of San Diego, California. So I close by exclaiming that Gary, Andy, and Jennifer live by the creed of pulling together, supporting the one in front of you, the one aside of you on your left and on your right, and the one behind you. It would seem to me that we all could do better. and our country could be better at pulling together in the same way that Gary, Andy, and Jennifer did. This would enable us and our country to better serve and support our fallen heroes and wounded warriors and their family members and make our country a better place for all of us. So, let me raise my hat and proclaim. Gary Owen, Gary, 4th Platoon, Delta Company. Gary Owen, Andrew, 4th Platoon, Delta Company. And Gary Owen, Jennifer, U.S. Army Nurse, 75th Ranger Regiment, and Madigan Army Medical Center. And I say to you as I end, is God bless you all present, and all you listening, and God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. And now we'll have a poem by Unit 22, President Terry Grace.